Hello my friends, welcome back to r/ProRevenge, where you'll hear stories about people getting what they deserve. Guys, in today's episode, you're gonna hear two stories. The first is OP getting revenge on her own mother. The second story is a revenge on OP's psycho neighbor. Guys, I hope you stay for the stories today, and do hit that subscribe button for future revenge stories. Let's get into it. This first story is titled, Mother Lies, Takes Money from Me, and then gets screwed over financially. So, I'm 19, a female, and had only been living with my mother for a good 3.5 years, since I was put into foster care at a young age, and I don't remember living with my mother at all. Before moving in with her, she would tell me how great it would be for me to live there, and how I would be treated with respect, and yada yada yada. Well, since I started college, things went downhill. My whole life, I wanted to go to college for art, but my mother convinced me that it was stupid, and so I chose to go for a business degree. My first semester of college, everything started out fine. Then the end of September hit, and I got a reimbursement from financial aid. Let me add that my mother is on supplemental security income for minor disabilities, and hasn't worked in the past 18 years. She has arthritis and fibromyalgia, so apparently she can't work. I got public assistance that I never knew about since I was never allowed to do paperwork for anything. I thought we only got food stamps, but apparently she lied and said that I was paying a couple of $100s a month for rent, so she could get more money. So she was getting nearly $500 a month for my needs, and $350 a month for food stamps. And I want to note that I was never allowed to eat at home. Anyways, I got a healthy $2,000 back from financial aid, which I originally planned to spend on clothes, a laptop for school, and food. Well, apparently, every time I get money, it belongs to my mother. She demanded that I give her most of the money, so I spent about $1,500 on some jeans, a brand new PS4 system, a PlayStation Vita, PlayStation Plus, and a bunch of PlayStation 4 games for my boyfriend. She was pissed and belittled me until I gave her the rest of the money for quote-unquote rent, bills, and food, and she took the money and went and bought her boyfriend drugs. I was mad because obviously that's just not okay. I just pushed through the semester and kind of sucked it up like I usually do. February came along and pretty much the same thing happened. She demanded my $3,000 to pay for rent, electricity, the Wi-Fi, food, pretty much everything under the sun. She got mad when I refused to give her more than $350. I went off and spent the money on my anniversary, a new phone, a prepaid phone plan for the next few months. I also bought myself some food for when I was at home since I wasn't allowed to eat. And she was irate. How dare I spend money on my boyfriend and not the woman who gave birth to me? I tried staying away from home as much as possible, but every time I came home, I would get yelled at. Well, March was when everything crashed. I needed my Medicaid card and birth certificate for a program that helps people get jobs in the area, and my mom kept it, and she wasn't having it. Apparently saying that I needed the cards was being rude and disrespectful. I ignored her for the most part and kept insisting that I needed them right away because I had to leave. She gave them to me after half an hour of me telling her that I needed to leave and just started yelling at me. So I left for a few hours, and I got a call from my caseworker asking when I would turn the timesheets in, and she told me that I could lose the cash assistance if I didn't. I asked her what she was talking about, and she told me that I got approximately $500 a month to pay for rent and other things I needed, and have been getting paid for a while. I informed her that I never knew that, and she was very upset that my mother was using the money on God knows what. She told me to change the pin on the card and not let my mother touch it. So, I changed the pin on my card, went home, and my room was torn up. My clothes were everywhere, my laptop was missing, my Christmas gifts from my boyfriend were gone. I was very upset. I told my mother that I wanted my stuff back, and she just threw everything at my door. I started packing my bags because I was done with her garbage, and she demanded that I give her my Medicaid card back since she's always kept it. She got in my face, threw my glasses onto the floor, tried throwing my new phone, and was just screaming at me till I gave it to her. I relented, knowing that I changed the PIN and she can't use it. After she went to the store and tried buying something with it, she came home and started shoving me around, demanding that I give her the PIN. She was telling me that I was just like my father, how I was a piece of garbage for buying jeans that actually fit me for once in my life, and how I was trash for liking the presents I got from my boyfriend and not from her, etc., etc. She actually hit me because of it, and hit me until I gave her my PIN. So of course, I was dumb and I gave it to her. Someone for some reason called the cops, and they showed up shortly after, and her boyfriend started telling them that I was hitting her and that I was a pathological liar. I showed them where she hit me and tried explaining that she took my Medicaid card, but they didn't care. After the cops left, my mother said that my boyfriend was not allowed to enter the house again. Then she said I had a new curfew of 6 p.m., and if I left the house, I was never to return again. So I left. My boyfriend took me to a homeless shelter specifically for teens and young adults that were in abusive situations and had nowhere else to go. The following day, I go to get a new card, and my mother had taken out $260 at 5 a.m. with the help of my oldest sister. I had $4 to buy food for the next 2 weeks before I could apply for my own food stamps and cash assistance case. Most of the time I only had water, and I would eat every 3 days at my boyfriend's house. When the virus hit, his dad refused to let me over, even though he knew what was going on to a certain extent. I didn't eat anything for a week before being able to get food stamps. I wish I had gotten a job, but having 8 classes took up a majority of my time. The college suggested that I withdraw to focus on my mental health. I went from seeing my therapist for half an hour every other week to seeing her for an hour every week. She suggested that I cut contact with my mother permanently, even though it meant losing a good $3,000 worth of stuff I bought for myself over the past 12 years. I was so upset about losing 40 of my stuffed animals. They really meant a lot to me, and they were kind of the only things that helped calm me down during a panic attack. I know it sounds immature, but I've had most of them since I was 8 years old. Then something popped in my head while I was applying for my own food stamps and cash assistance case. I realized that I could easily report my mother for welfare fraud. Not only had she been taking $500 a month from me, but she lied and said her boyfriend and her didn't share food and were quote-unquote roommates. She paid to use other people's food stamps, and she sold her food stamps for cash to buy fast food or drugs. So I did just that. I went to our state's website and reported her for fraud, adding when she took the money from my card at 5 a.m. that one day. I went into detail, gave the exact location of where she did it, and everything. I said she used other people's cards all the time, which was very true, and how she demanded my card whenever I had it. A couple weeks later, I got a letter from the Department of Social Services, and they accidentally sent it to my address instead of my mom's, thinking she moved along with me. I opened it and read that she was denied public assistance, denied medical insurance, and denied food stamps. She met the requirements for getting them, but because of my report, she lost everything but her SSI, as far as I know. What probably helped was that I told the DSS that she stole my card and requested a new one, and the lady at the front desk was mortified. She's now out $850 a month, and out of health insurance, which was paid by the state, all because of me, and I boasted about it to my therapist. My therapist actually congratulated me, and I'm very shy with people, so to report something like this was very unlikely, unless you got me very angry. I'm not sure if this was appropriate here, but it took a lot out of me to be able to even do it. Thanks, anxiety. I got so much satisfaction, knowing that OP's mom is no longer getting any of that money. Taking money from your daughter is one thing, but to demand it and then use it to buy your boyfriend drugs? Oh my goodness. I'm sending you a virtual hug. I truly hope that you're in a much better situation in life right now, as this is a much older post that I'm reading. And yeah, I hope things are working out for you. This next story is titled, I froze my psycho neighbor out of her apartment. So in college, my two friends and I decided to find a place together off campus. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom house with surprisingly affordable rent. The basement of the house was listed as a separate apartment, but as it had a separate entrance and the indoor stairwell had been blocked off, we weren't worried, and the thermostat was upstairs. And then the demon neighbor moved in. From upstairs, we could hear everything. This adult woman would call her mother and scream at her to pay for her cell phone bills and give her grocery money. She would scream at whatever guy she was sleeping with to bring her meth. And one day, she brought home 3 puppies to scream at too. We were terrified of this woman, and the noise was hell. Also, we'd been idiotic enough to sign a lease stating that we were responsible for all utilities, period. Meaning now we were financing her gas, water, and electric. But with only 2 months left on the lease, we thought we could just ride it out. But then, she started smoking. Constantly. According to the landlord, she had quit for good when she signed the lease, but for good only lasted 2 days. Since it was winter, the heat was running nearly 24/7, and the smoke was wafting up from the vents. Our apartment and all of our belongings began to reek with smoke. We contacted the landlord because we signed for a bloody non-smoking apartment. He told us that we lived in a state where you could technically call an apartment non-smoking, even if it shared ventilation with a smoking apartment. At this point, my 2 roommates were heading out for a 2-week vacation, as they were online students while I was residential, leaving me alone in the apartment with the demon smoker in the basement. I couldn't sleep or eat because my idiotic stomach decided to react to all of the secondhand smoke by aching and cramping constantly. After 3 days, I was a little insane, so I made a plan. I checked the forecast, lows in the 20s all week. I borrowed a friend's ultra-insulated sleeping bag, and I bought one of those ski masks with holes for your eyes and mouth. I got out my stocking cap, my silk long underwear, my woolen socks, and my down parka. I bought tea, hot cocoa, and ramen, and prepared to live off of a diet of hot liquids. And then I turned off the heat. Day 1, she's screaming at her mother for forcing her to move into this frozen hellhole of an apartment. Day 2, she's screaming at her boyfriend because he won't let her move in with him. Day 3, she's screaming at the landlord about how she's freezing. Day 4, the landlord's at my door. I greet him in a full ski mask, parka, stocking cap array, looking like I'm headed out to rob Santa Claus at the North Pole. He asked me if I don't find it a little chilly in the house. I replied that I found all the cigarette smoke to be a little warm. Day 5, she's screaming about the bitch upstairs to anyone who will listen, and I'm sitting upstairs clutching my car keys and my pepper spray with 9-1 typed into my phone. She finally decides she's leaving and moving in with Greg, quote, even though he just got out for stabbing Travis, and he lives in that creepy house in the woods with all those biting dogs. Day 6, she's gone. I silently bless Greg. The moral of the story, there's a bloody reason the rent seems too good to be true. P.S. For those wondering, I did have a friend who worked plumbing stop by to give me some advice about how low I could go before I burst the water pipes. And that's it for this episode of r/ProRevenge. If you didn't catch the last episode of r/ProRevenge, it's a really good tale. So if you haven't heard it, click the video right now. I hope you guys got your revenge fix for the day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.